went on a date just for fun, but it led to something totally unexpected. Alright, so let me set the stage. I, 27M, had been single for a while, mostly by choice. Not because I was some broken-hearted mess or anything, just busy. Work, gym, friends, repeat. Dating felt like too much effort, and honestly, I was good on my own. But one night, after a couple of beers with my roommate Jason, I let him convince me to re-download the apps. You don't have to marry them, bro. Just go have fun, he said, swiping through my matches like it was a sport. And yeah, maybe I needed a little fun. So I matched with this girl, Emily, 26F. Her profile was the perfect mix of witty and flirty, and she had this sarcastic edge in her messages that I instantly vibed with. We exchanged a few texts, nothing deep, just jokes and casual conversation, and then she hit me with, "So are we actually gonna meet up, or are we just pen pals now?" I like that, no games, direct, so I set up a casual dinner date for Friday night at this cool taco place downtown. No pressure, just good food, good drinks, and a good time. I wasn't expecting anything serious, but holy shit, the night turned into something else entirely. I got there 5 minutes early, which is rare for me. The place was buzzing, neon lights reflecting off the wooden tables, and that perfect mix of tequila, grilled meat, and fresh lime hanging in the air. And then she walked in. Now, I'm not going to pretend it was some movie moment where time slowed down and music swelled, but damn, Emily was stunning. Not just in the hot girl on a dating app way, but in the effortlessly cool, I'm actually fun to be around way. She had on ripped jeans, a fitted leather jacket, and this confident smirk that made it feel like she already had me figured out. "Tell me you already ordered a margarita, or I'm walking out," she said as she sat down. I laughed. I was waiting for the pressure of judgment before making my choice. "Smart man, 2 margaritas, extra salt," she told the waiter without even looking at the menu. And just like that, the date took off. We talked like we'd known each other forever. She roasted me for my Spotify playlists. Apparently, having early 2000s emo bangers and 90s rap is a crime. I made fun of her for thinking pineapple on pizza is actually good, and we shared random, ridiculous stories from our past. By the time the plates were empty and our third round of drinks arrived, I was actually enjoying myself, like a lot. Which was the problem. Because this was supposed to be nothing. No strings, no expectations, just a fun night with a cool girl before we both moved on with our lives. But then she said something that hit different. "You know, I almost cancelled tonight," she admitted, swirling the last of her drink. "Why?" She hesitated for half a second. "Because I've been seeing someone, not officially, but it's complicated." And there it was. Now, most guys might have taken that as a sign to back off, but I wasn't most guys, and I was 3 margaritas in. So instead, I leaned forward. "Well, aren't you the little rebel?" She smirked. A little fun never hurt anyone, right? And just like that, the air between us changed. The just for fun phase that wasn't so simple. And just like that, the air between us changed. It wasn't obvious at first. The conversation still flowed, the jokes still landed, and we were still 2 people who had met up for tacos and margaritas without expecting much. But beneath it all, there was something charged, something neither of us acknowledged out loud, but both of us felt. I walked her to her car that night, and when she turned to say goodbye, there was a moment, a split second, where I thought she might kiss me. Her eyes lingered on mine just a little too long, her lips parted like she was about to say something important. Instead, she just smiled, shook her head like she was laughing at herself, and said, "See you around, trouble." And then she was gone. I told myself that was it. One night, one great memory, but then the text started. "I just saw a guy wearing Crocs and socks at the gym. This is an emergency. Please tell me you ran away immediately." "Nah, I asked for his number. We're engaged now." Ouch. And there were the late night calls. At first, they were just casual. We'd talk about dumb shit, the worst movies we'd ever seen, childhood stories, bizarre things we'd overheard strangers say in public, but eventually they got deeper. One night, around 2 a.m., she called and asked, "Do you ever feel like you're living the wrong life?" That question sat with me for a long time. The first time we met up after the date, it was accidental, or at least, that's what we told ourselves. She texted me one Friday night, "Are you out?" I was. Jason and I were at a bar downtown, half drunk and talking shit about the worst Tinder bios we'd seen. When she said she was nearby with some friends, it felt too easy to invite her. She showed up in a red dress, her hair in loose waves, and I swear, every guy in that bar noticed her. But she walked straight to me, slid into the booth next to me, and stole a sip of my drink like she'd been doing it for years. That night, we didn't acknowledge whatever this was, we just existed in it. She danced with her friends, but every time she turned around, her eyes found mine. When the night ended, she hugged me goodbye, her hands lingering on my back just a second too long. It should have ended there. But then it kept happening. First, it was easy to justify. It's just fun. We're just 2 people enjoying each other's company. No expectations, no promises, no future. That's what we told ourselves. But the problem with playing with fire is that eventually, you get burned. We started seeing each other more often, sometimes under the guise of accidental meetups. One night she texted me, "This week has been hell, I need a drink." I knew what that meant. 15 minutes later, I was already waiting for her at a quiet bar we both liked. She showed up in an oversized hoodie, leggings, and that messy bun she always wore when she was exhausted. No makeup, dark circles under her eyes, but still, somehow, she looked ridiculously beautiful. She slid into the booth across from me, let out a heavy sigh, and just looked at me for a long second before saying, "I don't even like tequila, but I need one." So we drank. We talked about her work stress, my own personal mess, and the absurdity of adulthood. Somewhere between the second and third round, her foot brushed against mine under the table. Neither of us moved away. Somewhere between the third and fourth round, she reached across the table and ran her fingers over my wrist absent-mindedly. By the time we left, she was leaning into me as we walked, my arm instinctively wrapping around her waist. And when we got to her car, she hesitated. "I should go," she whispered. "I know." She didn't move. Neither did I. And then she was kissing me. Not just a casual, impulsive kiss. This was something else, something deeper, something that sent my stomach flipping and made every rational thought disappear. When she pulled back, she was breathless. "I'm in trouble," she murmured. I wanted to say, "Me too." Instead, I just cupped her face, my thumb brushing against her cheek, and kissed her again. And from that moment, we were in free fall. We never talked about what we were doing. That would have made it real. That would have forced us to acknowledge the inevitable crash waiting for us. So instead, we just kept going. She'd show up at my place at odd hours, her excuse always something casual. "I was in the neighborhood. I had a rough day. I needed to see you." I let her in every time. Some nights we'd just talk. She'd curl up on my couch, her head in my lap, and we'd watch reruns of sitcoms, both pretending that this was normal. Other nights we wouldn't talk at all. Those nights were the most dangerous. The problem with pretending is that reality eventually forces its way in. One morning I woke up to the sound of her phone vibrating on my nightstand. I wasn't going to look, I wasn't that guy. But then the name flashed on the screen. Nathan. I stared at it. I knew about him, of course. She never talked about him much, but he existed in the background, like a shadow neither of us wanted to acknowledge. I didn't realize I was holding my breath until the call stopped. A second later, her phone buzzed again. "Where are you?" I felt sick. Beside me, Emily stirred, stretching lazily before blinking up at me. "Morning," she murmured, her voice still thick with sleep. I couldn't speak. Her eyes followed my gaze, landing on her phone. And just like that, reality crashed in. She sat up quickly, grabbing her phone, her expression unreadable as she stared at the screen. "I should go," she said softly. I nodded. She didn't kiss me goodbye. For the next few days, I tried to ignore the gnawing feeling in the pit of my stomach. Emily had walked out, no goodbye, no lingering glances, nothing. I told myself it didn't matter. We were just two people caught in the moment. We were never meant to last. It wasn't supposed to be anything more than a temporary distraction, a series of late-night rendezvous and stolen kisses. A fling, just that. I should have let it go. But the truth was, I couldn't. It was subtle at first, a slight shift in my thoughts. I caught myself looking at her texts a little longer than I should, reading between the lines, interpreting her words as if they held hidden meanings. I started imagining what it would be like to see her smile across a breakfast table, or hear her laugh as we walked through the park on a lazy Sunday afternoon. It was absurd, really, how easily someone could slip under your skin and make themselves comfortable without you even realizing. The problem was, Emily wasn't like anyone else. She wasn't just fun. She wasn't just someone I could hook up with and forget about. She was different. And that terrified me. One evening, nearly a week after that morning, she texted me again. "I miss you." I stared at the words, a feeling of warmth creeping through me. I told myself it was just the lingering heat of last time, that irrational pull towards something I shouldn't feel. But even as I tried to convince myself that I wasn't falling for her, my fingers hovered over the screen, typing and deleting, typing and deleting. Finally, I replied, "I miss you too, where are you?" Seconds later, her response came, "Come over." I didn't waste time. When I arrived at her apartment, the door was slightly ajar, and I could see the glow of her lamp through the crack. She wasn't expecting me, but she knew I'd come. She didn't say anything when I stepped inside. She didn't need to. The air between us was already thick, charged with unspoken words. "Hey," she whispered, standing by the couch, arms crossed as if she were trying to hold herself together. She was trying to keep a distance, but her eyes betrayed her, flicking from my face to my lips and back again, like she was trying to decide if this was something she should be doing. I closed the door behind me, and before she could stop me, I took a step forward. "You don't have to say anything," I said, my voice low, trying to soften the tension in the room, "but I need to know if this is still what you want, because I can't pretend like I don't care anymore." Her breath caught, she looked down at her hands, fiddling with the sleeve of her shirt. I knew she was thinking, weighing her options, trying to figure out how to put everything into words without breaking something. Finally, she met my eyes. "I don't know what I want." It was like a punch to the gut. I knew what I wanted. I had known for days. I wanted her. But what could I do with that? What could I do when I was the one standing in the way of what she had? What does that mean? I asked, my voice cracking slightly. She took a deep breath and sighed. I'm not the only one in the picture, you know that, right? I didn't need her to say his name. I already knew. Nathan, the shadow hanging over us, the one I kept pretending wasn't there. I know, I said quietly, my voice almost a whisper, but I need to hear it from you. What do you want, Emily? She shook her head, her lips trembling. It's not that simple. I can't just pick one of you. I don't know how to choose between the two of you. There it was, the truth. I could feel the weight of it, like the world was pressing down on her. I could see the guilt in her eyes, the conflict tearing her apart. She was caught between two worlds, me and Nathan, and neither was simple. Neither was easy. She stepped back, pulling away from me. I need time. I need to figure this out. I nodded, but it felt like everything was slipping through my fingers. Time was something neither of us had. The next day, I was at work, trying to distract myself from the gnawing thoughts about Emily when my phone buzzed. It was her. Can we talk? I felt a sudden jolt in my chest. I didn't know what to expect, but I knew this conversation would be different. When I met her later that afternoon at a quiet cafe, her eyes were red. She had been crying. You need to talk to him, she said softly, her voice breaking. Nathan wants answers, and I don't know how much longer I can keep this up. My stomach twisted. I can't just walk away, Emily. I can't pretend that I don't want this, want you? Her lips quivered as she shook her head. I don't know what to do anymore. He's always been there. He's been my everything, but I feel like I'm drowning. I swallowed hard. And me, what am I to you? Her eyes filled with tears, and she couldn't answer. That was the moment I realized it. She wasn't just caught between us, she was lost in the middle of it all. 2 days later, I received a message from Nathan. It was short, direct, to the point. I need to talk to you. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to leave him in the background where he belonged. But the other part, the part that had been too deeply tangled in this mess, knew I couldn't. When I showed up at his place, he didn't waste any time. She's going to choose, man, he said bluntly. But you and I both know she can't have both of us. She's going to have to make a decision. I clenched my fists, the weight of his words hitting harder than I expected. I'm not trying to fight you, Nathan continued, his voice calm, but you need to realize something. She's not going to wait forever, and neither will I. I looked at him, and for the first time I understood. He wasn't just angry, he was afraid too, afraid that he was going to lose her. I'm not asking you to back off, I said, my voice barely a whisper, but I won't back down either. The silence between us was thick with everything we both knew was coming. Emily had to choose. And I didn't know if I was ready for the answer. The days after Nathan's message blurred into a haze. I couldn't focus on work, couldn't focus on anything really. All that consumed me was Emily, her face, her voice, the way she had seemed to become everything to me in such a short span of time. And yet, despite everything, I knew there was only one thing she could do. She had to make a choice. It happened one evening, just a few days after the conversation with Nathan. Emily texted me, her message short, almost painfully direct. Can we meet? I've made a decision. I read those words, feeling the tightness in my chest. My heart began to race as if I already knew what was coming, but I pushed it down. I told myself I was strong enough to hear whatever she had to say. Whatever it was, I could handle it. I met her at the park where we had shared so many quiet, intimate moments. The same park where our story had started, and now where it would end. She was already there when I arrived, standing by the old oak tree, her face slightly turned away from me. I could see the tension in her shoulders, the way she was clenching her fists at her sides. Hey, I said softly, approaching her cautiously. She looked up at me, her eyes filled with a sadness I hadn't expected to see. She opened her mouth, but no words came out at first. She took a deep breath and finally spoke. I've made my decision, she said, her voice thick. I can't keep going back and forth between the two of you. I love you, but Ethan, he's the one I'm supposed to be with. He's been with me through everything. Through the bad, through the good, through the years I've known him, I've realized he's the one. And I can't keep pretending that you and I have a future when I know deep down where my heart truly belongs. Her words were a quiet storm, a delicate but undeniable truth that shattered something deep inside me. I'd seen this coming, of course. I had, but knowing it and hearing it were two very different things. For a moment I couldn't speak. The lump in my throat felt like it might choke me. She stepped closer, her hand reaching for mine, her fingers brushing against my skin in a fleeting, painful touch. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I never meant for this to hurt you, but I need to be with him. I need to be where my heart is, and I think I've known that for a while now. You deserve someone who can give you the same certainty, the same love that I can't offer you anymore. I swallowed hard, feeling every ounce of what I'd lost in that moment. You don't have to apologize, I finally said, my voice hoarse. You made your choice, and that's what matters. I just want you to be happy, Emily. She looked at me, her eyes glistening with unshed tears, but she didn't let them fall. She didn't want me to see her break down. She was strong, always had been. I'll always care about you, she said softly. You'll always have a place in my heart, but it's not the way it used to be, and I need to honor what I've built with him. I nodded, my chest tight. There were so many things I wanted to say, so many things I should have said, but the words wouldn't come. All I could think of was the finality of it all. She stepped away from me, slowly turning to walk back toward the street where Nathan would be waiting. It was over. She was gone, not just from my life, but from the possibility of a future together. The weeks that followed were full of small steps, each one harder than the last. There were nights when I would lie awake, thinking of her, replaying every moment we had shared, wondering if I had missed some sign, some moment where things had started to unravel. But slowly the pain faded. Slowly I began to rebuild. I didn't call Emily again, I didn't text her. I let her go as she had chosen to do with me. It wasn't easy, and there were moments when I wondered if I had made the right choice, but I knew I had. She had made her choice, and now it was time for me to live my own. I took up new hobbies, spent more time with my friends, started going on dates again, though none of them felt quite like what I had with Emily. But I wasn't looking for another Emily. I was looking for something new, something that would be mine, something that didn't carry the weight of someone else's past. And one day I would find it. For now, I had learned the hardest lesson of all, that sometimes the hardest thing is to let go, to accept the end, but also to understand that the end is just the beginning of something new. It was time to move forward, without her, without the past. Just me and whatever the future held.